Hey everyone! Welcome back to my hand lettering series. In the last video, we finished up the last of the lowercase brush letters that we started in part 1 of the lowercase letters. And in this video, we're going to do all of the uppercase brush letters. So if this is the first video in my hand lettering series that you are catching right now, I really do recommend that you start this playlist over and start the tutorials back at the first video, and I will have that linked up in the cards as well as down in the description for you guys, so that will be really easy to find. Before we get into the tutorial, I just wanted to remind you that if you do like this video, make sure to click that thumbs up below and subscribe to my channel if you want to keep up with all of my latest videos. And if you do subscribe, make sure to hit that bell icon so that you can get notifications each time I do upload a new video. So now that I've said all that, let's get into the tutorial. Alright, so in the last video, we went over ascenders and descenders, and we also added the ascender line and the descender line to our line structure and terminology. If you guys have watched the rest of the videos in this series, then you will know already about this line structure. And if you haven't, then I really recommend that you go and watch those videos before you move on to this one. And I will have that series playlist linked down in the description of this video for you guys. So what we're going to do today is our uppercase brush lettering. And also, if you guys are curious about any of the tools that I have here, or maybe some other tools that I recommend for hand lettering, take a look down in the description of this video and I'll have a list of my recommended hand lettering tools down there for you guys. So today I'm going to be using my water brush once again. As I mentioned in all my other videos, this is my preferred method or my preferred tool for doing my hand lettering, but feel free to use whatever tools you prefer or whichever ones you're practicing with at the moment. If you have brush markers or anything like that, go ahead and use whatever you like. And once again, I will have worksheets for each one of these letters available for download, so you can print them out and practice these letters on your own. So also check down in the description for a link to those worksheets. Alright, so now let's get started on our lettering. For this video, unlike the last one, I'm just going to be starting at A and ending at Z or Z. So for our A, we start on the left side of our letter, and we're not going to start directly at the baseline for this. And I should mention that all of our cap letters are going to fit within the baseline and the cap height. They may extend slightly above or below, but we're going to be staying within those lines for this tutorial. So for A, we're going to start on the left side, as I said, just above the baseline. And we're going to be going slightly down, but we don't want to go thick on this line because this is just sort of a little entry curve. So we're just going to go thin and then thin up to our cap height, and then thick down and then thin up. And then for your crossbar, you can choose to cross your letters wherever you like. You can do it a little lower, you can do it a little higher, or you can do it in the center. Personally, I mostly do my letters a little bit higher, but there are some letters that I like to cross a little bit lower. I think H is one of those letters. It might be the only letter that I cross low. So for my A, I do a cross that's a little bit lower. Or sorry, a little bit higher. So that is one way to do an A. And for this, I'm not going to show you two variations for each letter. There's only a few that I have variations for, and I will show you those. So you can also do an A that's a little bit more curved. So you start it out the same way, thin upstroke, and you curve at the top rather than point, and then back into a little curve, and then you can cross it towards the top the same way. That didn't work out so well. I'll try it again. Like that, and like that. That's a bit better. So those are two variations of your A. Then B, for a lot of our capital letters that have the thick downstroke on the left side, such as B's or D's or F's, and there's a few other ones, they will have a little entry swoop at the top. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to start towards the top, but not quite at the top of the cap height. And I'm going to do a little swoop mark up towards the cap height like that to start. And then down to a thick downstroke. And then I'm going to start about the same spot for the first bump or hump. And thin upstroke, and then thick downstroke, and then taper into a thin cross, and then back into thin, and then thick downstroke. And then when you get to the bottom of your B, you're going to loop around and exit the letter to the right. So you create a little loop. So next, C, obviously, and C is just one of the simplest letters to do. And I often, as I said in the previous video, have trouble with it, but you start on the right side of your letter directly between the X height and the cap height, and you start in a thin upstroke curved towards the left, and then a thick downstroke curving, and then tapering back to your thin upstroke. So that's a little, you can see it's a little slanted. Let's try to make a straighter C. No promises here. That's a bit better. Now D, it's going to have that little curve or the little swoop that I mentioned in B, right at the top left hand. And D's come all the way down in a thick downstroke to the baseline. And instead of stopping here, you're going to curve around in a loop towards the left, and then back, and then thick down, just slightly thick, back to thin, and then back around, up to thin, and then down to thick about halfway through the letter, and then exit the letter to the right. So that's a D, and it can take a little bit of practice. Normally I find whenever you do your letters quicker, they end up looking better. So sometimes when I'm showing you guys the letters, they end up looking not so right or not quite right. So if I do it a little quicker, let's see what happens. Better or not? Better. I think it's better. So that just goes to show that you want to go slow when you're practicing, but also when you find that right speed, it just helps your strokes come together better, and you can create more steady downstrokes and more steady and even looking upstrokes rather than this one. You can see it's a little squiggly because I was going slow. All right, moving on to E. So E, we're starting on the right side of the letter, similar to C, in a thin curved upstroke towards the right, and then back down into a thick downstroke. It's a very small curve, and then taper to a thin cross stroke, back out towards the left, and then down into a thick downstroke. Once you reach the baseline, back up into a thin upstroke. And that's E. You can choose to do a little loop on your E if you want a little more style, like this, like that. I like to start my F with the thick bar downstroke rather than crossing the top. I think that's the way you would normally start an F when you're writing regularly, so I guess that's not so strange. So I start with my thick downstroke, and again, you're not going to stop at the base, you're going to curve and create a loop at the left side of your letter, like this. Well, my camera stopped recording there for a moment without me noticing, so I'll just finish up here in this little inserted clip. So you'll do your downstroke with a little curl on the end, and then you're going to do 2 crossbars, one on top of your F and one just slightly above your X height. For G, we're going to start on the left side of the letter, directly on the X height line. And we're going to go in a thin upstroke, curving slightly towards the right. Then we're going to loop around to the left, thick downstroke to create that loop, then up to the cap height, and then down to a thick downstroke, and then create another thin loop. and that's your G. Then H has that little curvy entry stroke, and then thick downstroke. And then once again, we're not going to finish here, we're going to loop around, and we're going to create a crossbar towards the bottom part of the letter, and then our last thick downstroke, like so. You can also choose to do your H like this. So start it out the same way, with a little loop crossing over, and you can either go all the way up and then back down, or you can start it like that, do your loop, cross over, and then start another loop similar to this one over here on the right, and then down. So you have a few different options you can do for H's. Now the next couple of letters I find a little bit strange and can be a little bit challenging to get them right just because they do look so similar to one another. So we're going to start our I about the X height line, and we're going to do a thin cross towards the left and then up to the cap height, and we're creating a hump on the left side, and then we're going to go down to a thick downstroke, and we're going to do a small loop at the bottom. And you can do a slightly smaller loop at the top if you feel like that one is too big, but your bottom loop should be smaller than your top loop. So that's I. Now J is very similar to this. So like I said, do some practicing to make sure that your I's and your J's are discernible as I's and J's and look different from one another. So starting at the X height once again in a thin curve up. And with the J's, your curves tend to be a little bit more exaggerated and then a little bit larger. So you get to your cap height and then you go thick downstroke, and then another loop, the same as the I, only this loop's going to be much larger. I'm going to do it again in one quick motion. So here you can see how I probably should have made this loop slightly larger, more like this one, just because it's getting a little too close looking to the I. So just practice those ones as I said. Then K has that swoopy entry stroke, and then thick downstroke. Then it has a thin arm at the top, and I don't start mine quite at the center line or the X height line, sorry. I do similar to a cross on the A and the F. I do it slightly above the X height, so a thin upstroke, and then connecting off of that thin arm on the K, then you do a thick curved downstroke like that. And you can do a different variation of that K with just more loops. You can add loops to a lot of these letters if they don't have them or if I don't do them that way. Just experiment. This up and then this and then the loop. Now L's, you have to be careful not to make them look like S's. So you're going to start with a small loop at the top. So we're going to start on the left side of the letter, thin, and then thick, and then another loop. It's like this. So you have to make your bottom arm, I guess you would call it, your bottom arm long enough so that it looks like an L and not an S. And you can curve it towards the left a little bit, there. And you can make this a little thicker because you are going down slightly and back up. So L is another good one to put a little bit more practice into. Next we have M, and M is another one of our letters that has an entry swoop line towards the left. So like that, down to a thick downstroke, and then you can lift your pen. As I said in the previous video, lifting your pen will often give you better results, I find. And then you start up between the X height and the cap height, and you're going to do your curve, your first hump, then you're going to do a thick downstroke till you get to your X height, and then back up thin, and then back down thick. You can also add a loop to that M. So thick and back up. Thin, thick, and then a loop up into your second hump, and then thick down. And you can make this slightly lower than the X height if you like. And then N. N is very similar to the lowercase n that I showed you in the previous video, except it has this little entry stroke. Thick, and then thin, and then thick. Like so. And a lot of these letters here, like I said, we're staying within the baseline and the cap height, but to add a little bit more style when you are actually using these letters, you can extend your right arm of your letter down past that baseline just slightly to create those little exit strokes. And then, of course, we have O. And O is very similar to C, except instead of having a gap, it's closed on the right side. So I'm going to start at the in between the X height and the cap height on the right side, thin upstroke, thick downstroke, and thin upstroke. That could be a little more round. Try that again. So thin, thick, thin. It's a little bit better. And then you're going to create a little comma. So you're going to go thick downstroke and then out. So R, a little curvy entry stroke, thick downstroke, thin upstroke, thick down, thin, thin, and then back to thick, like that. And once again, this is the type of letter that you can create a little loop in the center if you choose to. Like this, and then like that, like that. S, again, the capital S is also one of my favorite letters to do, as with the lowercase letters. And they're quite similar, only with the uppercase S, you're going to start towards the baseline. I would say maybe halfway between the baseline and the X height. And you're going to start by creating a thin upstroke in a squiggle, so squiggle like that, and then loop around to the left side of the letter, and then thick squiggle all the way back around, and then back to thin. So let me try that again, a little faster. So that's S. Now we're going to do T, so downstroke, and then instead of finishing at the bottom, we're going to do a little loop at the bottom, and then your crossbar. That. Then we have U. U also has a little swoop, but it's a little bit different. It's sort of just an upward curve toward the left, and then back down into your thick downstroke, and then thin upstroke. I go all the way to the top, and then I finish with a thick downstroke down to the baseline. And again, as I said, this is another one of those letters that you can extend down past the baseline. And these are just some of the ways in which you will start breaking the rules a little bit more when you get a little bit more comfortable. And we'll talk about that in a couple of videos when we do our bounce lettering tutorial. So next we're going to be doing V. Starts out much the same as the U, only our downstroke doesn't go straight down, it's going to be slanted slightly. So thick and then thin upstroke. And with a V, as we sometimes let our downstrokes drop below our baseline, we're going to let our upstroke extend past our cap height very slightly to create a loop on the left side, thick, and then back up. And then W, again, it starts out the same way as the U and the V. So down, thick downstroke, then upstroke towards the X height, and then back to a thick downstroke, and then up to a thin upstroke, and then we're going to finish it the same as the V, a loop. And you can do, again, a loop in the middle of your W, like this, thick, up, thick, just like that. You can't really see it that well, but it's there. And then X, starting out in the same way once again, thin to thick, and then a thin upstroke curving down. So we're going to start a little up above the baseline on the left side, and then thin upstroke. Y is going to start out similar once again. We're going to go thin up, thick down, just past the X height, and back up to thin. And then we're going to start a thick downstroke on the right. It's going to start very slightly below the cap height, like this, down to the baseline, and we're going to do a little loop exiting to the right of the letter. So I'm going to do that again, a little bit faster for you. Up, down, and then like so. And then finally, Z or Z, depending on where you are. So we're going to start with our cross line. It's thin and it's a swoop, kind of like the way we crossed our T at the top and our F. And then we're going to do a thick diagonal line towards the left, so thick. And then we're going to do another curved thin line across, and then you're going to cross your Z for a little extra style with a thin crossbar. Don't forget, as I said, I will have worksheets for each one of these uppercase letters prepared for you guys so that you can download them and print them out and practice these letters on your own until you get so good at it that you don't even need the worksheets anymore and you're just lettering on your own. Oh shoot, you guys, I'm just looking at this sheet and I'm realizing I forgot 2 letters in this alphabet. You guys probably noticed it right away when I left them out. I forgot to do P and Q. So I'll just do those ones for you right now. I'll squeeze the P in there and then I'll do the Q down here. Just keep this line structure in mind whenever I do the Q. So we're going to start our P out the same as these other ones with the little entry curve, and then a thick downstroke like so, and then our hump, then upstroke, thick downstroke, and then we're going to create a loop exiting the letter to the right. So I just had enough space for that P, and you can't really see that exit loop, but I'm sure you can imagine it. So with the Q, it's going to be the exact same as the O, only we're not going to do the loop at the top. So starting on the left side in a thin upstroke, just between the X height line and the cap height line. So thin upstroke towards the left, then a thick downstroke curving back the other way, and then back into your thin upstroke. So that's the base for your Q, and then you're just going to do a little curvy comma. So a little squiggle to finish off your Q, and you're just going to go thick downstroke, squiggle like that. So that is Q. I think I've got all the rest of the letters here for you guys. I'm really sorry that I missed those 2 letters and that they're out of order here on this sheet. I hope that you guys forgive me for that. I feel really bad, and that's not good. But there they are for you guys. And I hope you enjoy them just the same. And don't worry, I won't forget to include any of these letters in the worksheets. I promise. And that's basically the tutorial for your uppercase alphabet. So that is it for this tutorial, guys. In the next tutorial, I was going to cover bounce lettering, but I think it's a good idea to take these last several videos and bring them all together and start making words. So that might seem really simple, but there are a few tips that I would like to share with you guys that might make it easier for you guys when you're trying to connect your letters into words, and just so that it will be a little bit easier for you guys and maybe a little less frustrating. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. I hope you guys will come back. As I said, if you did like this video, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and if you really do like it, share it with your friends. I hope you guys all have a super awesome day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!